I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, telling a story like this, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I thought I had a pretty normal life, married to Lisa for about 8 years now. We had our ups and downs, sure, but overall, we seemed like the couple who'd grow old together, maybe even have a couple of kids, settle into a nice suburban life. Or at least that's what I thought. It all started to change a few months ago when I was diagnosed with cancer. Yeah, I know, life can really throw you some curveballs. I was going through chemo, losing weight, feeling crappy, and honestly, it was the worst time of my life. Lisa was supposed to be my rock, right? She'd come with me to appointments, hold my hand, tell me everything would be okay. But even then, I started noticing little things that didn't sit right. She'd get weirdly defensive when I asked about her phone. She'd say she was just talking to her friends, but I caught her hiding it a few times. Nothing concrete, just gut feelings. Then came the strange nights when she'd say she was working late, but I'd see her sneaking out early or coming home late, smelling different, like perfume that wasn't hers. I brushed it off at first, telling myself I was imagining it, that I was stressed and exhausted. But the worst sign was when I noticed her phone kept disappearing and she was more secretive than ever. I'd catch her lying about where she was or who she was talking to. My suspicions grew, but I didn't want to believe it, because I was sick, vulnerable, and honestly, I loved her too much to think she'd do this. Then one night I decided to check the house security cameras. It was late, I was exhausted after a long chemo session, and I just wanted to see if she was really working late or if she was somewhere else. I pulled up the footage from that day. I couldn't believe what I saw. There she was, Lisa, making her way into the hospital parking lot, her face tense, like she was hiding something. I thought maybe she was visiting a friend or dealing with her own issues. But then I saw her walk into the hospital, straight to the oncology wing. I froze. My heart started pounding because I'd been suspicious about her doctor, Dr. Carter, for a while. He's the guy who's been treating me, an older, handsome, charming guy, probably in his late 50s. I always thought he's just a good doctor, but now I was starting to wonder. I watched as Lisa slipped into the hospital, and then I saw something that made my stomach drop. She went into Dr. Carter's office, not just the waiting area, but his actual office. The security footage was crystal clear. I saw her go in, and a few minutes later, him too. They locked the door behind them. I couldn't process it. I sat there staring at the screen, my hands trembling. How could she do this to me? During my chemo sessions, no less. I was vulnerable and sick, and she's out there cheating behind my back with my doctor. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just a fling or some bullshit. It was real, and it was happening while I was at my most fragile. I'd always trusted Lisa, always believed she was loyal. Now I felt like a complete idiot. The betrayal cut deep because I realized she'd been lying about everything. Her late nights, her secret phone calls, her attitude. All of it was about this affair with Dr. Carter. I couldn't sleep that night, replaying that footage over and over, feeling a mix of rage, heartbreak, and confusion. I knew I had to confront her, but I didn't even know how to start. Part of me wanted to scream, to cry, to break something. The other part just wanted the truth. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine anymore. That's when I decided I'd gather more evidence and then face her. I wanted to see what she'd say when I finally told her I knew. I didn't want to just walk away without understanding why she did this to me, to us. But deep inside, I already knew the answer. She'd been bored, maybe looking for excitement, or she just wanted to hurt me because she felt neglected. I don't know. The only thing I knew for sure was that my world was shattered, and I had no idea what to do next. The next few days were a blur of anger, heartbreak, and planning. I couldn't focus on anything else, and honestly, I kept replaying what I saw on that footage. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lisa sneaking into the hospital, her face tense, her body language telling me she knew she was doing something wrong. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach every time. The betrayal hit me harder than anything else in my life. I had trusted her with my health, my secrets, my vulnerability, and she was out there screwing my doctor, my oncologist, no less. I started to dig deeper. I knew I couldn't just confront her without solid proof, so I went back and checked the security footage from the previous weeks. Sure enough, There were multiple nights where she'd slip out, and I caught her meeting with Dr. Carter in his office. They talk, laugh, and then she'd leave, often looking around nervously. It was sickening. I felt like such a fool for missing all of this. Being so wrapped up in my illness, I never saw her true colors. The worst part was imagining her lying to me, pretending everything was fine when she was secretly with someone else. I kept asking myself, how long has this been going on? Did she even care about me during my treatments? Or was I just some cash cow, some guy she was using? It made me sick. I wanted to confront her immediately, but I also knew I needed to plan. I needed to be strategic because I wasn't about to let her spin some bullshit story and make me look like the crazy one. A part of me was furious, but another part just felt defeated. I was already weak from the chemo, physically and emotionally drained, and now this. It felt like the world was crumbling around me. I started questioning everything I believed about her, about us. Had she ever truly loved me? Or was I just convenient? I couldn't sleep. Every night I'd sit in the dark, staring at the ceiling, trying to come up with a plan, trying to figure out what I was going to say when I finally confronted her. Finally, I decided I'd gather all the evidence I needed, more footage, pictures, maybe even some recordings if I could manage. I wanted her to see that I wasn't some naive fool who could be lied to. I wanted her to understand that I knew everything. The thought of catching her in the act, exposing her lies, made my blood boil. It was just about cheating. It was about the fact that she'd lied about everything, about my cancer, about her loyalty, about her respect for what we had. One night, I set up a hidden camera in the living room, hoping to catch her slipping up. I also started to keep a detailed journal of her activities, just in case I needed to present a timeline. It was hard to keep calm, but I knew I had to be smart. I was planning my move, and I knew I had to be careful. I didn't want her to get wind of it and run off, or worse, destroy what little dignity I still had left. That same night, I sat back and looked at the footage again. I saw her sneaking out of her phone, looking nervously over her shoulder, and then entering the hospital. But what I saw next made my stomach turn even more. She wasn't just meeting Dr. Carter for a quick chat. They were there for at least 20 minutes. They went into his office, and the door didn't open again until I saw her walking out looking satisfied, like she'd just finished something she shouldn't have. That image haunted me. She looked different, more confident, more in control. It was like she was feeding some dark, selfish part of herself, and I was just a fool for not seeing it sooner. The anger built up inside me. I wanted to scream, to lash out, to make her feel what she'd done. But I also knew I had to stay composed if I wanted to get to the truth. I was tired of being the fool, tired of being the one sick and betrayed. At that moment, I realized I had to confront her, face the music, and see what she'd say. I didn't care how mad I'd be, how hurt or furious. I just needed her to admit it, to tell me the truth, and then I'd decide what to do next. But deep down, I was already planning my revenge, something cold, calculated, and unforgiving. This wasn't just about cheating anymore. This was about her breaking every promise, every vow she ever made to me, and I was going to make her pay for that. The day I decided to confront Lisa finally arrived, and I knew I had to be ready. I spent the entire morning reviewing all the footage, gathering every piece of evidence I could find. I didn't want to go in blind, and I definitely didn't want to give her any room to deny what I already knew. I also took a deep breath and tried to steady my nerves because I could feel the anger boiling inside me, threatening to spill over. When she came home that evening, her typical bitchy attitude was on full display. She was snapping at me over the smallest things: how I was sitting, how I looked, even about dinner. It was like she was baiting me, waiting for me to slip up. I stayed silent for a while, letting her get comfortable, then finally dropped the bomb. I told her I knew everything, that I had seen the footage, that I knew she'd been cheating on me with Dr. Carter during my chemo sessions. Her reaction was priceless. She looked at me with this disdainful smirk, like I was some pathetic fool who couldn't see the truth. "Oh, Mike," she said, rolling her eyes, "you're overreacting. You're sick, you're scared, and you're making a big deal out of nothing." She tried to brush it off, deny, spin some story about how it's all just a misunderstanding. But I wasn't having it. My voice was steady, cold even, because I'd already made up my mind about what I wanted to do. I told her I knew she'd been lying, that I had the evidence, and that I wasn't going to tolerate her bullshit anymore. She got defensive, raising her voice, calling me paranoid, accusing me of just projecting because I was sick. And then she started crying, fake tears streaming down her face, trying to manipulate me. She played the victim, claiming she was only talking to Dr. Carter about her own issues, that it was just sexless venting or some stupid excuse like that. I didn't buy a single word. I'd seen her sneaking around, heard her lie about her nights out, and now she was trying to pretend she was innocent. That didn't work on me anymore. I told her that I was done, that I deserved better, and that I wanted her to leave. She looked at me with that bitchy glare, then threw some more lies and bullshit excuses. How she was only with Dr. Carter because I was never there for her, that I was too sick to notice what she was going through. She blamed me for everything, like I was some terrible husband who had failed her. Honestly, I felt a mix of disgust and pity. Pity because she had become this manipulative, selfish person, and disgust because she betrayed everything we had, especially during the hardest time of my life. I told her she could pack her bags and leave. She yelled at me, called me names, said I was crazy, that I was just jealous because I was sick and vulnerable. But I didn't flinch. I wanted her gone, not just for now, but for good. The thing is, inside I was shattered. I felt like my world had collapsed, all my trust shattered into pieces. But I also felt a strange sense of relief. This was finally out in the open, and I didn't have to keep pretending everything was okay. That night she stormed out, yelling all sorts of accusations, calling me a psycho, a jealous fool. I watched her leave, feeling hollow but also strangely empowered. I knew this wasn't going to be easy. I'd have to deal with the aftermath, the emotional fallout, and figure out what my next move was, but for now I was done playing nice. I was done pretending I didn't know. I had the evidence, the truth, and I was planning on using it. I didn't want her back, not after everything she'd done. The pain was real, but so was my resolve. I was going to get through this somehow. I just didn't know how yet. The days that followed were a whirlwind of chaos and clarity. I stayed home, mostly in a daze, trying to process everything. I'd look at the footage again, replaying her sneaking into that office, every lie she'd told, every fake tear she'd shed. It hit me hard that she'd been lying about her feelings, about her loyalty, about everything. And I was left picking up the pieces of my crumbling trust, wondering how I'd ever been so blind. I knew I had to do something about her, but I also knew I couldn't just run into a confrontation blindly. I started to plan my move carefully. I wanted her to understand that I knew the truth, that she couldn't manipulate me anymore. I decided I'd gather more proof, more recordings, maybe even try to get some of her messages or emails, anything that could seal her fate. I couldn't just confront her with "I saw you cheating." I needed hard evidence, something undeniable. One night I decided to set a trap. I installed a hidden recorder in the house, just in case she tried to deny everything again. I also contacted my lawyer, asking about my rights and what I could do if I decided to take legal action. I wasn't sure if I wanted to divorce her right away, but I knew I had to have a plan, a backup. I couldn't let her manipulate me into staying or making some stupid decision I'd regret later. Meanwhile, Lisa was still throwing her fits, trying to guilt-trip me, calling me everything from paranoid to crazy, and trying to spin her lies even more. She kept asking for her things, acting like she was the victim, but I saw right through her. I told her she could leave when she was ready, but she didn't leave that night. No, she stayed, probably hoping I'd change my mind or get weak. What really pushed me over the edge was that I found out she contacted Dr. Carter again, probably trying to spin some story about how everything was just a mistake or that she was sorry she got caught. I saw messages on her phone, texts that confirmed she was still going behind my back even after I confronted her. That was the final straw. I realized I couldn't keep pretending that this was just a mistake or a misunderstanding. This was pure betrayal. That night, I sat her down one last time. I told her I had enough, that I knew she'd been lying all along, and that I was done. I told her she needed to leave and that I was filing for divorce. She screamed at me, called me names, said I was overreacting, and accused me of being jealous and insecure. But I just looked at her and said, "You're not the person I thought you were. I trusted you, Lisa. I trusted you while I was fighting for my life, and you threw it all away for some stupid fuck with a doctor. You're dead to me now." She stormed out that night, slamming the door behind her. I felt relief, but also an ache in my chest. I'd lost the woman I loved, the woman I married, the one I thought would be by my side through everything. But I also knew I had to protect myself, my dignity, my sanity. I was done playing the fool. I wanted to move on, rebuild my life without her lies and betrayal dragging me down. The following days were a blur of legal calls, packing her things, and trying to hold myself together. I couldn't let this ruin me, though it hurt like hell. I kept thinking about how much I'd trusted her, how I'd fought through cancer only to be betrayed by the one person I thought cared about me. I kept asking myself what I'd do differently, what I could have seen that I missed. But deep down, I knew the answer. I'd been blind, and now I was learning the hard way that sometimes the people closest to you can hurt you the most. And all I could do now was focus on healing, physically and emotionally, and moving forward, even if it seemed impossible right now. The days after she left were the hardest I've ever experienced. The house felt emptier than it ever had before, and the silence was deafening. I kept replaying everything, her sneaking around, the lies, the nights she spent with Dr. Carter, over and over in my head. It was like a sick movie I couldn't turn off. I'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling a strange mix of relief and deep sorrow. I knew I'd made the right decision to cut her out, but that didn't mean it didn't tear me apart inside. I also realized how much her betrayal had affected my sense of trust, not just in her but in myself. I kept asking how I missed all these signs, how I could have been so blind. I'd always thought she loved me, that she cared. Turns out she was just pretending. That sting hurts more than the betrayal itself. I had poured so much into her, my time, my love, my health, and she threw it all away for some affair with my doctor. It made me question everything I'd ever believed about love, loyalty, and even myself. But I knew I couldn't drown in sadness. I had to get stronger. I started seeing a therapist, mainly to help me work through the pain and anger. I couldn't let this ruin me completely. I also began focusing on my recovery from cancer. I had to get better, not just physically but emotionally. My body had been through hell, and now my mind was too. Every day I forced myself to get up, go for walks, do small things that made me feel alive again. I refused to let her control me, even from afar. Meanwhile, I kept the evidence I'd collected safe, screenshots of her messages, recordings from the house camera, everything. I wasn't sure what I'd do with it yet, but I wanted to be prepared. The idea of her trying to spin some story or come back and manipulate me again made me furious. I knew I had to protect myself legally if she decided to fight for anything, so I contacted my lawyer and started the divorce process. I wanted her out of my life, permanently. What also became clear was how much her betrayal had revealed her true character. She was selfish, manipulative, and lacked even the basic respect any partner deserves. The worst part was knowing I'd trusted her all these years. I thought we had something real, something worth fighting for. Instead, she'd been playing me, sneaking around, lying, and probably laughing behind my back. It was a blow I didn't see coming, and honestly, I still feel the weight of it every day. But I also realized something else. I was stronger than I thought. I'd survived cancer, I'd fought through endless treatments, and I was still standing. This betrayal, as painful as it was, taught me that I can survive even the worst heartbreak. I'd be okay eventually. Right now, I just needed time. Time to heal, to process, to rebuild. So I took small steps. I reconnected with friends, started going out again, and even tried to focus more on myself. I bought myself a new hobby, something to fill the void she left behind. I didn't want to let this define me, but I also refused to pretend it didn't hurt. I allowed myself to feel everything: anger, sadness, frustration, because suppressing it would only make things worse. Honestly, I don't know what the future holds, but I do know one thing: I'll never trust her again. Not after what she did. And I've learned that sometimes the biggest betrayal comes from those you trust the most. Now, I'm just trying to focus on healing and moving forward, however long that takes. Because if there's one thing this whole nightmare has taught me, it's that I am capable of surviving even the darkest storms. And someday, I believe I'll find happiness again, even if I have to start all over. Looking back now, I realize that this entire experience has changed me in ways I never expected. It's like I was blindsided by something I never saw coming: trust, love, betrayal, all wrapped into one devastating package. But amidst the chaos, I found a strange sense of clarity. I understood that I had let someone I loved deeply exploit that love for their own selfish needs. It was a brutal lesson, but one I needed to learn. The thing that keeps me going is knowing I didn't let her destroy me completely. I might have been shattered at first, but I'm piecing myself back together. I've come to accept that some people are just incapable of loyalty, and that sometimes the only way forward is to cut the poison out and move on. I learned to listen to my gut more, to stand up for myself, and to trust that I'm worth more than being someone's second choice or secret escape route. The betrayal still hurts, but it's a different kind of pain now, less raw, more like a scar that reminds me I survived. I've come to see that sometimes people will hurt you because they're broken inside, and what they need is not my pity but my distance. I've learned to be less naive, more cautious, and to value myself enough to walk away from what's toxic. I want to say to anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, don't ignore the warning signs. Don't let yourself be blindsided just because you believe in someone's potential or love. Sometimes people hide their true selves behind a facade, and the truth only comes out when the damage is already done. Trust yourself, listen to your instincts, and don't be afraid to walk away if it's what you need. As for me, I'm focusing on healing, on rebuilding my life, and on rediscovering what happiness really means for me. The road ahead isn't clear, and I know there will be more challenges, but I am done mourning what I lost. I'm choosing to look forward. I'm choosing to be stronger. And I'll never forget the lesson this heartbreak taught me, that even in the deepest pain, there's a chance to find strength I didn't know I had. So yeah, that's my story. Betrayed, broken, and betrayed again, yet somehow still standing. Life is unpredictable and people will disappoint you. But you've got to keep going, keep fighting, because eventually the storm will pass and the sun will come out again. And when it does, I'll be ready to embrace whatever comes next, better and wiser than before.